So thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Marco Tischler. I'm Director of Product Management at Cisco ThousandEyes. With me, I have Nikita Shashidhar. She's a Leader of Product Management at Cisco Meraki. And we'll be talking about why do we need network assurance, why it's important for user productivity, and what we at Cisco have been doing to improve how you do network assurance in enterprise networks. So first of all, if you have questions, if you want to chat to us, there's a WebEx channel you can use on the WebEx app. You can join a discussion, and you can post your questions there, and we'll make sure that we answer as best as we can. So what are we going to be talking about? We'll be talking about why we need network assurance, what are we delivering as Cisco, as Meraki, as ThousandEyes. We'll be doing a few demos, and then we'll be talking about the future. And let's go straight into it. So why do we need network assurance? Well, even though resilience is built into the networks as we use today, we all know that networks still break. That's why we keep monitoring them. That's why we have all the different tools that allow us to troubleshoot them. And networks break in very different ways. And there's a difference between networks that we own, and there's a difference between networks that we don't own. So when it comes to networks that we don't own, our visibility is much worse, but they still break. And when they do, we need to be able to determine where the problem is, isolate it, root cause it, and then hopefully make it go away. If it's a network that we own, we can probably take actions ourselves. If your wireless access point is providing poor service, there's probably something you can do about it. You can change radio profiles, maybe move that access point to a different location. If it's an unowned network that is giving you a problem, then you probably need to pick up a phone and have a conversation with somebody. Now, part of network assurance is to be able to pinpoint or first confirm that the problem is happening, where that problem is happening, and try to isolate the root cause as much as possible. And this is something that we do as part of Cisco ThousandEyes with synthetic testing. So we try to isolate the problem as much as we can. And the challenge that we're solving is that in the way we build networks are heterogeneous. There's internal part, and even in the organization itself, you're going to have people that don't necessarily talk to each other. Sometimes collaboration folks will not talk to the networking folks. Even you have different silos of responsibility. There's a team responsible for wireless, there's a team responsible for wired switching, there's a team responsible for WAN connectivity. And because of these silos, these teams use different tools. And because they use different tools and they work in silos, it's difficult to determine the one truth of how the network operates. And the other thing is that these tools generate a lot of data. The networks are getting more complex, and because of that complexity, we need to rely more on automation, machine learning, and AI to be able to determine what's going on. So individual teams have limited visibility, challenge number one. Workflows are predominantly reactive. So somebody escalates an issue, be it a person that raises a support ticket or a team escalating to another team, and that's how we start working on problems. And the third is, because we have this siloed organizational model, we also have siloed tooling, which is often not shared across the siloed boundaries. And this is what we're trying to change. So this status quo of how organizations and networks are built today and how they communicate is what we're trying to change. There are 4 stages to any assurance. The first is, if we want to be able to detect things, we have to baseline them first. So we have to be able to understand what normal looks like so we can detect abnormal. We need to be able to localize issues because the network connectivity chain is quite long. Which part of the connectivity chain is causing a problem? Ideally, then we go into mitigation and remediation. So can we take actions to make the problem go away? And in the future, we want to learn from this. So could we predict some of these problems or optimize the network in a way so these problems don't happen again? And all of these steps kind of make up the network assurance cycle, if you will. So I am going to be giving it over to Nikita, who's going to be talking about what are we doing in this area.
Thank you, Marco. Hopefully I'm audible here, and I'll try to speak loudly as well, so for the folks in front, you can hear me too. So Marco just spoke about like the problem space that we're trying to solve. And he also spoke about like the vision or the 4 stages of how we want to kind of achieve network assurance. Now, what I want to be talking about is how we aim to do that within the Cisco solutions, right? So within Cisco, we are aiming to build a more unified platform. That means we're trying to bring network insights together, streamline operations across. You saw the big diagram over there. So we're trying to streamline the operations and turn your more reactive controls into proactive controls. So hence, we are building a more smarter, unified platform across the Cisco solutions. So we can give you the best-in-class network assurance that you can get from Cisco, and also that is available at the market. So what does that mean? We have the Meraki data lake and the ThousandEyes data lake that is so big, and the breadth of it is humongous. What we want to do is we want to stitch the data together and make sure that we give you meaningful interpretations of the data so that you can get visibility into both your owned and your unknown infrastructure. That means your client can be connected remotely, it can be connected within your network. You will have all the data and the information that you need in order to troubleshoot your end client device. With data, with such large data, in order to make meaningful interpretations, we need to be adding intelligence. And that is something that we are doing and thinking of from day one. So when we add intelligence, what happens is it starts giving you more targeted and more actionable insights, so that you as a network admin or like as a network team can understand these actionable insights and act upon it right away, hence reducing your mean time to resolution. So your client can probably be of like your iOS device or your Windows device. It can be in a various complex environment. With intelligence, we want to be able to identify those patterns and make sure that we give you meaningful, actionable next steps so they can start resolving the problem. Now with intelligence, obviously intelligence only gets better over a period of time, right? With your day-to-day operations, the data set coming in, the complexity that we have, it only gets better. What we want to aim at is get to the closed loop automation. That means have a connected system that kind of understands the complexity, understands what is the next actionable step to take in order to kind of like resolve the problem in a meaningful way and get to the automated state. Now that is definitely the end state that we're all aiming to kind of like get to. But we are adding a lot of intelligence that understands these patterns, these anomalies, so we can quickly identify what these are and automate this at the end. So with all of this, you can be least assured that we are really doubling down on the platform and adding more intelligence so that we can give you a better experience with network assurance. So with that, what I want to do is I want to ask you a couple of questions. Now, we want to keep this interactive. I know all of you have come out of lunch, and maybe it's not the ideal time, but let's keep this interactive. I have some questions that I want to ask you. And this question is based on the experience that you have, that kind of like you run into on a day-to-day basis. We do have some gifts that we have. Vikram, who's our moderator, will be like walking over. So if you know the answer, raise your hand, and then like let's see who gets to the closest, and then we will have like a gift to hand over to you. So with that, you already have the first question up on the screen. What is the percentage of network issues typically reported by end users before the IT team becomes aware of them? A quick raise of hands. It's a percentage. Take a guess. Okay, I saw you go. 90%. Close. What about you? 20%? That the bar is really low. Okay, sorry, I saw some over here. 75? Okay, we're going to take one more, and then I'm going to choose the closest one. 73? Okay, so the answer is 60%. So, but it's still more than the average, and I think so. You were probably, you said 75?
75 was the closest.
So 73, right here. Thank you so much. So that is like the closest. So that is definitely more than average, right? So the solution we're building is going to drastically reduce this. We have 2 more questions, so more chances to win. On an average, what is the time taken to resolve the end user connectivity issues according to industry benchmark? And talk to me in hours. So okay, 4 hours, there you go. So yes, it's about 2 to 4 hours. So that means on a weekly basis, you're spending close to 15 hours in resolving end user connectivity issues, which is something that I think, needs to be automated, and we will talk about that. And last question, the percentage of help desk tickets related to end user connectivity problems. 9? Okay, you're close, I will give this to you. So it's about 80%, so I would say about 9 out of the 10 tickets. So that means the more number of help desk tickets that you get on a daily basis is all to do with end user connectivity. Just simple questions like, hey, my user is not able to connect to the network. So with this, what I want to talk about is obviously, hopefully you'll have gotten an idea of how your day-to-day life being a network admin or IT admin is. So how are we going to resolve this, right? So we at Cisco have built a solution together that kind of unifies the experience and brings the solution that is the best-in-class assurance for you, which is what we are planning to do with Client 360 coupled with the ThousandEyes Traffic Insights. So when we bring these two solutions together, you can now troubleshoot your end user connectivity problems that can have connectivity issues to your network or to an application as well. So using this unified experience, you can now, no matter where the client is, remote or in the network, you're able to troubleshoot it very easily. So let me talk to you about what is this Client 360. Client 360 Cloud is a solution that is powered by Meraki. What this really does, it gives you a holistic view of your client connectivity to your network. That means it answers questions such as, how is my client connected? Where is my client connected in the network? What is the problem that the client is running into? What is the path of the flow from your end client to your end destination, be it an application? The problem that is occurring within this path, and how do I resolve this? Or what is the root cause and how do I resolve this? All of these questions can be answered within the Client 360. Now I'll hand it over to Marco to talk about what happens when you go into the Wild West, which is in the unknown infrastructure.
So one of the challenges we have, both with owned and unowned, is that, so at ThousandEyes, our bread and butter has always been generating our own data set to understand what's going on. And the way we do that is we run a bunch of agents that are running synthetic tests. And the synthetic test is the means for us to get this information and data about what is happening on the network. The challenge that we kept running into is that when you do this end-to-end, with an end-to-end meaning that from the interface, or understanding the path from the interface that the user uses to connect to the network, to the network interface used on the other side that connects the application to the network, physical server, VM, virtual machine, EC2 instance, Kubernetes cluster, doesn't matter. The challenge is that when you do this synthetic test, the context changes, or the amount of context that you have available changes between the owned and unowned infrastructure and then with the cloud. So we wanted to kind of make sure that we bring more context to each of these segments, right? And obviously on the internet, you have very low amount of context unless a service provider is nice enough to share all the telemetry from their routers with you, which they will never do. So, but we can do that for the owned network. And for the owned network, we started ingesting flow data. And what flow data allows us to do is to say, alongside the synthetic testing, which you can think of as a proxy metric to what's actually happening with a user, we can then quantify, okay, how many users are being impacted? How do the traffic patterns or the changes of traffic patterns in the network, how do they affect user experience? What is happening with things like QoS policies, and how are they affecting, how are they affecting digital experience, and are they properly configured? Can we observe the proper behavior from the network? And that's the idea of traffic insights. So one is just understanding, if we configure the policy, it means we configured an intent. Is the network performing in line with that intent? So if I configured QoS for Windows update traffic to be in the scavenger class, can I observe that from the network? Is that actually happening? And if it's not, how is it related to digital experience as measured by a synthetic test? The second is performance diagnostics. So if I do see a performance problem on a synthetic test, how can I contextualize it in terms of what I'm seeing in the network, the actual traffic, how does it behave? And finally, we want to be proactive about all of this. So one reason we do synthetic testing is because Nikita mentioned that there's a lot of support cases that have to come in before IT reacts. Well, what if those weren't support cases? What if those were alerts coming from ThousandEyes, doing a testing at a 1 minute interval before a user's experience problem and start reporting it? How can we be more proactive as opposed to reactive when it comes to network issues? And which is another thing that we need to address. So there's a few interesting use cases which I think you're probably fairly familiar with for why would you need flow data. And for us, it's really important, and this is what we kind of started with, is how do we bring this all together? How do we build this view where you can observe everything from a single tool, or as much as possible from a single tool? And this is where we have correlation between synthetic tests with contextualization from actual traffic as observed from the network. You can do application traffic analytics and understanding how the traffic patterns change. What type of traffic peaks at given times of the day, and is that unusual in some way? You can do reporting, trend analysis, and what's really important for us is, how do I determine the blast zone? What's the blast radius? What's the user impact? Can I measure the user impact in how many users are actually impacted? And we'll see a little bit of that in the demo. So with that, I'll give it back to Nikita to show us a Client 360 demo.
Awesome, thank you, Marco. So obviously we've done enough of talking, so let's now show you with a demo of how you can really achieve this and really solve your end user problems that you run into on a daily basis. So when you're using the Client 360 Cloud, which is powered by Meraki, as soon as you land on the Meraki dashboard, you are given a view of organization summary. So for those of you who have really large networks, you want to be able to get a quick identification of is my network health good? But even before I get started with my demo, let's take an example so that all of us can mentally walk through a problem that you may run into on a day-to-day basis. So for example, let's say that your front register or your endpoint client for those retail customers is probably having connectivity issues to the network. It can also be a security box, right? For those who are not in the retail space, you have a security box that is actually taking care of the security of your network. And you want to be able to understand and make sure that it has connectivity through and through. So say you get a notification or you're alerted that the endpoint client is having problems with your network connectivity. What you do is you land on this organization. So you land on this page and it quickly tells you, is it a network problem? So if its network is down, then you know that is the reason. But over here, the Mountain View network is not down. So, we go into the Mountain View network and then we see there are 3 clients that are impacted. Out of the 3 clients, you see that the one in question is the security box. Once we go into the security box, it kind of gets you onto the end client device page. Now this answers what are the issues the end client has experienced over the past day. And it gives you visibility of all the issues in terms of connectivity. And then it tells you how the security appliance is connected. Or the security box is connected across your network. I think one thing as IT admins we always suffer is identifying how the client is connected, where in the network infrastructure the client is connected. Now you don't have to worry about that. We bring that visibility to you and we tell you the entire client path up until the application as well. So, and not only that, we also give you a lot of information regarding the client, regarding the devices, and brings, it kind of contextualizes the information needed in order to troubleshoot your end client device. So once we are on this page, you can now be okay, let's troubleshoot one of the red X's that kind of gives me an idea of what the problem or the causation is. So clicking on the red X kind of tells you that the problem here is it's failed to connect to an SSID. The SSID that is broadcasted by the front register, and the problem here is that the DHCP server is not responding. So while DHCP is kind of a problem that we run into most number of times, what is the causation of it? It is because the DHCP is being blocked. Now you might take packet captures, there are several places on dashboard you can go in order to identify this, but again, you're wasting a lot of time in troubleshooting. And when you take packet captures, the policy information is not in there. So it really kind of elevates and enhances your troubleshooting mechanism. So now that we've understood that DHCP is the reason that it is blocked, you can then go into the relevant page and allow them. So over here, you know that the policy over there is now set to block. You can select the devices and go ahead and allow it. So once you allow it, it now has connectivity, or the DHCP server is responding, and then the security box is getting the DHCP leads that it is needed in order to connect to the network. So this really kind of like brings the relevant data, contextualizes it, and also gives you the events that happen that leads to a particular end client not able to connect to the network. Now what I have shown is really about the end client connecting to your network that you own within your infrastructure. Marco will take it from here.
So what happens if the problem is more towards your WAN edge infrastructure, so more towards the right-hand side of the connectivity chain you're observing? What if the problem is on the MX? So what would happen here, you'd see like a red sign on the MX, and from there, you'd be able to switch to ThousandEyes. And in ThousandEyes, you would see a synthetic test that essentially what it does, is it playing?
It's playing now.
Yeah. So what it does is it will show you a period of high loss, latency, jitter, which clearly is a network problem. So you can explore this in this multi-layer view in ThousandEyes. You just have this nice top-to-bottom correlation. And the idea is that with identifying this sort of problems, and normally you'd be alerted by them, right? I can then zoom in and I can observe the timeline as these things were happening. And I can open up my network path. I can see which layer 3 nodes were traversed, and I see that there's forwarding loss on one of these nodes. And I'm asking myself the question of, what's the user impact? What changed on this router? Why did this become problematic? And I can switch to the context of the actual user traffic. So I use synthetics to get to a point in time and place where I have a problem. Same thing as on Cloud 360. And now I have this contextualized in terms of all the traffic going to this server IP address, and I see it's dropping, so I see a gap. This confirms that this isn't just synthetic test having an issue, this is an actual user problem because we see that type of traffic dropping. What we also see is that if I remove that filter, so if I remove the context of that application alone, I can then inspect, okay, what's happening with this router at this point in time? Not just that application, but all of them. And I want to see this by applications. And I see this strange blob in the middle, which doesn't look right. So I'm able to go from confirming a problem to identifying this as a Microsoft Windows Update service that is starving out all of my other traffic, which is probably the root cause of a problem. And from here, I can probably go and check my QoS policies, because why would this type of traffic starve out everything else? And this is a good example of how assurance goes from like this high-level problem statement, oh, things are slow, or everything's not performing well, we can't get to application X, Y, or Z, to, oh, it's probably because you messed up your QoS configuration, or your QoS labels aren't being applied. So it's an example of also why you need the context of all these different data sets, or as many different data sets as you can get, in order to be able to understand the problem as it's happening, or as it's going on. Back to you, Nikita.
So what we've seen is that right now we have limited visibility, or IT admins have limited visibility. They have reactive flows that they need to respond to. Obviously, the stats clearly told us that there's more reactive, kind of processes rather than proactive. and we are siloed tooling. Because there's so many tooling that's available, there is no proper unified platform that brings these experiences together. So hopefully, what we would like you all to take away is that with this experience, we're giving you the end-to-end visibility, like how the client is connected, not just in your own network, but in your unknown infrastructure as well. You can use this data that we've stitched together to meaningfully get the interpretations in order to troubleshoot it. We're also proactive. Now with ThousandEyes' capability, we're adding a lot of synthetic flows that you can be more proactive rather than be reactive. And lastly, we're unifying these tools, right? There's a lot of capabilities that is baked into each of these platforms. We're bringing that in the most unified experience way so that you don't have to scramble with different tools and get one unified experience. So what is it moving forward? Hopefully we've delivered an assurance story that is compelling enough. However, we've also said there's intelligence that is baked into the platform. What we want to do next is give you access to an AI tool that you can interact with and get information that you're looking for. For example, you want to automate your routine tasks, right? So you can use this AI tool. You want to be able to get more granular or specific information that probably isn't available on dashboard. You can use this AI tool. And you can generate instant insights. So say your leadership asked you for some sort of information on a particular client or a particular network. You're able to generate that as well. So this is what, while intelligence is always baked in, and that is going to be our goal, we want our customers to get access to these tools so that you can interact and customize your experience as well. Now with that, a quick sneak peek into what the problem that I stated, which is you have a problem where your front register is not able to access the end user client problem. Everything that I showed was very much baked into the Client 360 Cloud or the Meraki dashboard. Now say you want to use your AI assistant to troubleshoot this. So instead of this page, you now bring up your AI assistant tool. Yeah, you bring up your AI assistant tool and ask, hey, can you troubleshoot the client front register that has run into a problem in the last hour? It analyzes, it brings all the information that you're looking for. Here, right now, it ran into a DHCP lease problem. You can click on troubleshoot, and then it tells you the DHCP lease problem is because there was no lease available. Then you can click on view suggested actions, and it goes through the breadth of all the KB articles that we have, best practices we have, and hopefully in the future configuration policies as well. And then it tells you what are some of the next recommended steps that you can take. And not only that, you can go back and troubleshoot problems that has happened even an hour before as well. So this is how we are not just limiting our customers with dashboard experience. We are extrapolating this and putting this and baking this into the AI assistant tool so that you can interact and troubleshoot as and when you're needed. So with that, if you have really enjoyed this conversation and also want to learn more about the products that we're building, please visit our World of Solution booth. We have dedicated demos. We're also going to be here if you want to talk to us on certain solutions. And there are different use cases that we're also talking about at these booths as well. And more importantly, there's QR codes. So these are in betas right now, the AI Assistant and the Client 360 Cloud. So if you want to sign up for it and get hands-on experience, please scan this QR code, and then we'll be more than happy to bring you on board.
And for the Traffic Insights part, it's generally available. And we offer a 60-day trial. So if you do happen to have access to ThousandEyes in your organization, feel free to try Traffic Insights, and you get a 60-day trial.
So there's a lot of next actionable steps, so hopefully I can take at least one of them. So with that, thank you so much for attending, and hopefully you enjoyed our show.
Thank you very much.